What's going on, guys? It's Greg here. Just wanted to do a review of the 5-star Firearms speed loaders and compare them to the HKS speed loader. These two speed loaders are the main twisting speed loaders, and what I mean by twisting speed loader is you have to twist this knob here to release the rounds into the cylinder. There are other speed loaders on the market now. There's a lot that are made for competition use, and those don't have a twist on it to release the cartridges into the cylinder. They pretty much have some type of spring mechanisms, or you kind of lock it in prematurely, so all you have to do is, when you go to drop the speed loader in, you don't have to twist to release the cartridges. I'll demonstrate for you. So here's the HKS speed loader, and if you guys don't know what a speed loader is, you're gonna get a quick crash course. So revolvers, you don't load bullets. You don't have magazines like on a semi-auto, so you have to load bullets individually into the chambers of the cylinder here, which can take a lot of time, unless you're shooting, if you're plinking or just shooting for fun or hunting, then that's okay. But if you're in a defensive situation where you have to defend your life, whether it's from another person that's shooting at you or trying to kill you, or a wild animal like a bear, you want to have the ability to load quickly and without having to individually put, cartridges into each cylinder, reach into your pocket or reach into a pouch and then, individually load them in. That takes a lot of time. So with the speed loader, what you do is you preload them. I'll just do a quick demonstration here. So you preload them just like you would in a semi-automatic magazine. You preload them, okay, and it functions pretty much like a magazine on a semi-auto. So then what you do is you lock it in, it's locked in, and then you drop it in to the cylinder, just like so. And then you twist it, you twist the knob back here, and it drops them all in, alright? So it saves a significant amount of time, and it pretty much turns a revolver into a semi-auto in terms of the reload speed. It reduces the disadvantage of having to, let's see, like if I'm loading them, individually here. I mean, just look at how long this would take, and the whole time, let's say somebody's shooting at me, or there's a bear charging at me, I would already be having my legs, chewed off at this point if it was a bear, or if somebody was shooting at me, I'd already be shot. So the speed loader tremendously increases the speed. And this pistol here is a 44 Magnum Smith & Wesson model 629 Performance Center. I've done a review on this, and I've shot it on this channel. I have some videos. If you go into my shooting playlist, if you click on playlists and then you click on shooting, you could see the times that I shot this with light loads and full power loads. These loads here are my light loads. These are 44 special Underwood ammo 44 specials. They have a 200 grain gold dot hollow point, and they're loaded to 44 special specs. So the pressure is very low, the recoil is low, this pretty much duplicates a 45 ACP, and then with the gold dot it prevents over penetration. So this is my concealed carry load when I carry this in an urban environment. So you definitely don't want to have a full power 44 Magnum load when you carry concealed in an urban area, just because the risk of penetration is overwhelmingly high. Same thing for home defense. These are my home defense loads, because I don't want to punch through walls and accidentally shoot my neighbors. So but anyway, let's get back onto the topic. So check out my shooting playlist if you want to see this thing in action. The bear loads are extremely powerful, and they're meant to stop a brown bear and black bear. The recoil is fierce and tremendous. I have a scar here from a blood blister that I got when I shot it last week. Probably because I didn't grip it well the first time I shot it, because I was coming off of the 44 special loads where it's a little more forgiving. So if you don't have the perfect grip, you know, it's not going to tear you up. But it looks like somehow, you know, I tore my skin open here. So anyway, I first got turned on to the 5-star company when I had my Smith & Wesson Model 500. And the reason why I bought them for my 500 Magnum is because it was the only company that was making speed loaders for the 500 Magnum and for big bores. And it seems like they've actually expanded their business now, and they're, you know, making speed loaders for a lot of smaller revolvers, for 357s, 38 specials, you know, things like that. So, and then they also offer anodizing now, so you don't have to have this shiny color. This is just aluminum, and now they have anodizing available, so you can have this like a more earthy color, so you're not, you know, reflecting light if you're concerned about that in a tactical situation. But anyway, so let's just do a comparison of the two. You know, the 5-star and the HKS. These are the two main players on the speed loader market right now. I think the Lyman company has just made a twisting speed loader, but I'm not sure how popular it is at this point, and I think it's for very limited calibers. But you know, anyway, so aside from the twist off, you know, this is a twist off. It has this knob here, like I said, to release the rounds. Some of the newer speed loaders like Safariland, Comp 1, 2, and 3, SL Variant, which is a German company, and Speed Bees. Those 3 speed loaders, they don't work on a twisting knob. What they do is that you just put it in and then you push down, and the pressure of pushing down releases the cartridges. So it eliminates that extra step of having to, you know, twist, release it, and then throw the speed loader aside and lock up the cylinder. So it's, you know, saves a little bit of time because you don't have to do that twist to release it. You pretty much just slam it in, push down, and once you push down, it releases the rounds. Most of those are geared towards competition use, and I definitely don't advise using those for real world self-defense applications, just because a lot of them use a lot of like complicated mechanisms and springs where, you know, they hold the rounds in place, so you don't have to actually do that final twist to release the rounds into the cylinder. You know, they have like some of them have like a giant spring, like the Speed Bees. It goes all around. There's like a spring that goes all around, and that spring holds the rim of the cartridge, you know, and if that spring were to fail, you know, you're going to be in trouble. So for a real world situation, I'd rather have something more reliable like these two, where, yeah, it's a little bit slower because I have to twist and wait for the rounds to fall in, you know, but that extra second, I'll sacrifice it if it means, you know, a lot more reliability. So I'm going to compare these two, and I'm going to tell you why I think the 5-star is a better speed loader overall. And so pretty much, you know, just looking at them, sizing them up from the outside, you can see this is 100% aluminum, and this one is a combination of Delrin plastic and aluminum. So the actual knob and the locking mechanism that locks up the rounds is all aluminum here. You can see the spur in there. That's what actually holds the rounds in place. That's aluminum, and the pin and the ball detent is all aluminum. So that's good, you know. This is Delrin. Delrin is a high strength plastic. They usually make punches out of Delrin, like a Delrin punch. You know, if you're you know, I don't know if you guys ever use like a Delrin punch if you're You know, even for firearms, if you have like a pin and you need to knock the pin out and you don't want to scratch the finish, you use a Delrin punch. It's like a hard plastic, so it's not going to mar the finish of the metal, but it'll get that pin out, and it's hard enough where it's not going to break or deform or crack or anything. So Delrin is definitely a hard material. You know, I don't know how strong it is compared to aluminum. I mean, just looking at these together, you can see this has a little bit thinner here along the walls where the cartridges go, and you can see this is tremendously, you know, thicker. The aluminum is just much more thick. Now, granted, you're not going to be, you know, running this over with a truck, you know, or, you know, driving over it with your quad, you know, or something like that. But, you know, it's worth to note that this is fully aluminum and this is Delrin. Delrin is really hard. I'm squeezing on it now, and I don't feel any flexing or anything. It's, you know, it's a solid plastic, you know, polymer, whatever it is. The only issue I would have with the Delrin is that it could be brittle because it's a plastic or a polymer. It could be brittle, especially when you compare it to aluminum. And this is a high strength aluminum. This isn't like a cheap aluminum. This is you know, this is like a high strength, you know, alloy, aluminum alloy. I don't know if it's the 7071 or the 6061, but you know, any aluminum that's over 6000 is strong, and that's usually what they make, like you know, Picatinny rails and firearm, you know, receivers that are aluminum, like AR-15s are made from the same type of aluminum that this speed loader is made from. So this is very strong. It's not gonna, you know, break unless you know, do something extreme, you know. Same thing with this Delrin is pretty hard. The only thing, like I said, is this might be brittle because aluminum is not by its nature, it's a metal, it's not brittle. So the only issue I could potentially see is if you were to use this in the woods. You know, if you go from extreme hot to extreme cold or vice versa, you know, this could potentially crack somewhere. I guess one example I could say is if it's extremely cold outside and you stand near a campfire, you know, and you're warming up near a campfire, or you have this near a campfire and then you step away from it and it's really cold out, potentially that could crack it. I'm not, you know, totally sure, but that's, you know, that's splitting hairs, I guess, at this point. But, you know, you definitely can't go wrong with the all aluminum. But if we size it up from the outside, you could see that the one thing that's different besides the aluminum is the size of the knobs here. On the HKS, the knob is smaller, and you also have to turn it clockwise to release the rounds, versus the 5-star. It's a little bit bigger knob in terms of diameter, and you have to turn it to the left counterclockwise to release the rounds. Some people say that, you know, it's a little bit faster when you're using this one, just because it because you twist it counterclockwise to release it. So, like, you know, you drop it in and then you twist to the left, and you automatically drop this, and this goes out of the way, and then you can lock this up. So you're kind of in that same, you know, motion, you know, where you're twisting it to the left and then you're dropping it to the left. So it's kind of in the same, you know, motion, versus the HKS. You know, you put it in, you twist it to the right, let the rounds fall, and then drop it off. So some people say that's a little bit slower because it's contradicting, the motion is contradicting itself. So because you're turning to the right to release it, and then you have to go to the left to drop the speed loader out of the way, versus the 5-star, it's both the same motion. You turn to the left to drop it, and then you move it to the left to you know, get it out of the way and lock up the cylinder. I don't know if that makes a huge difference. You know, I think that's kind of like splitting hairs. You know, I do a lot of speed reloads with revolvers, with this revolver especially. And I've used both to do my training with, and I didn't really notice a huge difference. I think it's a slight advantage, I would say, for the for the 5-star, but it's not like a deal breaker, I would say. But so, aside from, I'm just gonna load these up real quick so they're not floating all over the place, so the rounds aren't floating everywhere. So aside from the turning direction, that's definitely something to consider. I don't know if it makes a huge difference. Like I said, it definitely makes a slight difference, but it's not going to affect your reload that much. If you have all the other mechanics down well, it'll be fine. So you have the knobs are different size, and I'm going to explain the advantages and disadvantages of each of those. So if you look at them this way, you could see that the HKS is a little bit thicker, so you can kind of get a little more purchase on the knob itself. Let me just use a non-loaded one. You can get more purchase on the knob because the knob is thicker, so you have more meat to grab onto, and so it's a little bit easier to grab. Plus it has this knurling here, which is actually really sharp. I can actually file my nails down with this. It's a really sharp, I can file my nail down. Use this as a nail file. You see? It's really sharp. It's really solid knurling. And it's thick, so you get good purchase on it. So that's definitely a plus for the HKS. Now for this one, you can see right off the bat the 5-star, it's narrower. So you don't get that great purchase on it because it's skinny compared to this one's a little bit, thicker. This is skinnier, so it's, you don't have as much meat to grab onto, and then also it's not knurled like this one is, so it's kind of slippery. However, they overcome that, they try to compensate for the slippery surface with this nut shape here. So when you're holding this, it feels like you're holding like a nut, like a bolt. You're screwing a nut onto a bolt or something. That's kind of basically what it feels like. It has that same thickness. It's kind of slippery. It doesn't have the knurling, and it's got the nut shape. I wouldn't say that's a tremendous disadvantage for this one. The only time I could see that being a disadvantage is if it's if your hands are wet, or it's the speed loader's wet or sweaty or something. It might be a little bit slippery. You could see my fingers, they kind of slip a little bit. But the fact that they have that nut shape, it gives you a little leverage, so your fingers will grab onto those sharp edges, and that gives you the leverage to twist. So that kind of is a little bit, compensates for that. And it's also thicker. It's also a bigger diameter, slightly bigger diameter. So, it's a little bit easier to find it, especially if you have like gloves on your hands. And I'm going to go into the comparison of these for woods carry versus urban carry. And before I get into that, I'll just want to compare the price. The HKS is $10 and this is $25. The 5-star is $25. So you're looking at over 2 times the cost for the 5-star versus the HKS. So the HKS is, I would say, more budget friendly and better for training. If you want to do a lot of training, this is definitely a good way to go. You can drop these, you can break them. You don't have to worry about damaging it because you could easily replace it. It's $10. So for one of these, you can buy 2 of the HKS. So aside from, let's go back into the knob now. So in the winter time, if you're wearing gloves, I think the 5-star Firearms is better choice because the knob is bigger. So if you're wearing gloves, you can grab it easier. You don't have to like find this tiny little, knob. This is probably, I would say, the size of like a penny or a dime. This is probably like the size of a penny, I would say. And this one's approaching the size of a quarter. So it's a small difference, but it makes a difference, especially if you're in a stressful situation and you're just, you want to just quickly grab it and turn. You know, this is a little bit smaller. It requires more fine motor skills to locate it and then twist. And also the fact that this is totally round, even though it has those knurlings on it, it doesn't give you any leverage. You know, so if let's say this was frozen and there was frost on here, and you needed to use, you know, apply some torque to really break it free or something, or if it's really like iced up here, if it's like in the winter time and you got snow on here or ice or something, you know, you're not going to get that. There's no leverage here. So this knurling, if this knurling is eliminated, you have no leverage. Same thing if you're wearing gloves. You know, if you're wearing gloves, you're not going to be able to feel that knurling because you don't have the nerves in your gloves, obviously. So I would say that's kind of a disadvantage, especially, like I said, if this is being carried for woods use, you know, for bear defense or as a trail gun, and you want to have some speed loaders, I would go with this one. And in fact, that's what I do when I go in the woods. I carry this one. So, you know, like I said, if this was frosted up here, the detent or something, or there was frost on here or snow, if I have gloves on or even barehanded, I can grab it, and because you have that nut shape, you know, you get leverage to turn, you know, and break the frost off or break the ice free, you know, if this thing gets frozen up, and which could easily happen. You know, this is a very small piece here. You know, if there's a little moisture on that and it freezes up, you know, and there's a little bit of ice in the way, you're gonna have a problem releasing it. So this gives you a little more leverage to break that ice and you know, get that obstruction out of the way, because you got these sharp edges, you know. And you know, worst case scenario, you could also take a multi-tool and turn it, you know, versus this one, it's smaller and it doesn't have that leverage. You know, this, in my opinion, is great for city use, law enforcement, things like that. You know, this one is more for the woods, like I said. And what I like about 5-Star also is they make the back here is totally enclosed, so that protects the bullet, you know, the case and the primer from getting any kind of debris or snow or something, you know, on it, which could potentially, you know, cause a malfunction or a catastrophic injury. You know, if let's say you're using this in the woods and this gets dirty back here, you know, all these cartridges sticking out, you know, if let's say I drop this in the mud or something, or it falls in the snow and then I have to pick it up and put it in, it's gonna basically, you know, have all this mud around here and shit like that, and it's gonna, you know, it's gonna potentially cause a catastrophic failure, and that could be dangerous, you know. So for woods carry, I would say this is much better because the back is enclosed. Also, it's thicker than the HKS. I'll go over the final comparison here now because it's getting long, the video. The actual part that goes around the cartridge is slightly thicker, you know, maybe by like 1/8 of an inch, you can see. So this has more meat on it to, you know. And then another thing is the ball detent here. You could see that the 5-Stars is noticeably larger than the HKS. The HKS is much smaller. You can see the pin comparison here. The pin is much bigger, much thicker. So, you know, if you're in a situation, like I said, where something freezes over here, there's some ice or, you know, whatever, some freezes up in there, or there's a little grit of sand or something, this is going to have more ability to bust through that and twist, you know, and versus this is kind of smaller. Now I will say the HKS is a little more tactile when you turn it. You know, it has a very positive engagement and disengagement. You know, it's much stiffer versus this one, it's smooth. You know, you can see the difference. I can move it much faster. You can see, look, see how much smoother that is versus this one. It's not as quick. I mean, I don't know if that's a deal breaker. You know, I don't know if that really matters to some people. It might, you know, but I mean, you could see the difference in the thickness of the ball and the pin. You know, this is like a step up from the HKS. So For woods use, that's important, because if you have a cheap pin and the ball is too small, it's gonna break, you know, especially if you get this dirty, it gets frosty or snowy or icy. You know, that could be an issue. So, and then another thing, comparison, that, you know, if you look inside here, the spurs that hold the rim of the cartridge are much larger. You see in there that piece that's twisting inside? That's what actually holds the rim. So what you do is when you put the cartridge in, you twist it, and that little piece sticking out holds the rim of the cartridge so it doesn't fall out. And you can see it's pretty thick, you know, it's probably, I would say, you know, a ½ inch thick. I mean, it's pretty big, you know, that spur. It looks like a gear, you know, you see that gear in there? Look at how thick that is. It's like, you know, ½ inch thick, versus this one, the HKS. Look at how small that is. Look at the difference. You see the difference? If you look inside there at the back of the speed loader, see that? And then compare that to this. I mean, you're looking at, you know, what is that, 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 of an inch thick. See the gear wheel in there? That's what actually holds the base of the cartridge, you see? That grasps the rim. Look at how thin that is compared to the 5-star. Look at how massive that is. I don't know if that makes a huge difference either. You know, I would say if it's in a really abusive situation, this is definitely better because of that. But I thought it would be worth it to point that out. And then finally, if we move on to the material here, the Delrin, you know, sometimes I know, like the speed loader, when I do my drills, when I practice reloading, speed reloads, this is very smooth. So it's like sometimes when you try to put it in, you almost feel like this could slip out of your hands, you know, because it's round and it's smooth. This is totally smooth, you know, there's no knurling or anything here. So you could, if you're in a stressful situation and you're trying to reload this quickly, and your hands are sweaty or wet, or there's like ice or something on this or whatever, you know, this could potentially slip out of your hand. It doesn't take much force for this to come out. You know, there's nothing really holding it, and it's totally round, so it could slip out of your hands quite easily, you know. Versus the 5-star, the 5-star has these like bulges here, and that kind of gives you something to grip onto. It's not as easy. It doesn't, you know, see, I'm trying to pull it out of my finger. You know, here it's like, you know, even when I hold it, I squeeze it, I can pull it right out. You know, it's much slippery, more slippery, you know. So in a stressful situation, you could easily drop this on the floor, which you don't want to do, because then you can dirty your bullets. You may have to clean them off. You may have to blow them off. That's going to slow you down, you know, in a defensive situation. If you drop this in the mud and this gets covered in mud or snow, you got to blow it off and clean it off and then put it in. That's going to slow you down like, you know, ½ a minute to a minute. So if a bear's charging you or something, you're done. This has those grips here, so it kind of gives you a natural, you know, grip surface to it. So I like that. That's a nice advantage. I don't know if they did that on purpose, but that's a big advantage in my opinion. You know, one of the things that I would recommend to 5-star is if you guys could make this handle, you know, the knob, make it a little bit thicker, you know, like maybe double the thickness, because this is just too thin. You know, if you just double the thickness, or even get it up to the thickness of the HKS, and then maybe add, like, you know, some texture here on the actual surface of the knob. So, you know, yeah, you got that nut shape, but, you know, it's nice to have that texture that you can feel and you know, get that grip on. But definitely this is an advantage if you're using gloves, and the actual extra girth and the width is much better. So that's pretty much it, guys. Speed loaders are very important. You know, if you're a revolver guy like me and you like revolvers, then speed loaders are critical for your defensive capability. And it's worth it to spend time talking about. You know, just like if you have a semi-auto, you got to pay attention to what type of magazines you buy. Same thing with a revolver. You know, you got to really analyze the pros and cons of which magazines to get. You know, because it could make a difference. You know, in a real world situation, it could make a difference between life or death. So you don't want to get something that's cheap and it's gonna, you know, not work when you need it to. So not that HKS is bad or cheap. You know, it's definitely very affordable. I wouldn't say it's cheap. The components are high quality, but the 5-star is much better in terms of overall quality. I would also say that, you know, the 5-star is a smaller company too, so it's kind of more of a custom shop in a sense that, you know, you have the ability to get different colors. You know, they have all different kinds of styles available, versus the HKS is a mass-produced company, and, you know, they're kind of like any of those, you know, revolver companies like Bianchi, or some of those, you know, law enforcement suppliers, where everything is just mass-produced. All they do is just make holsters for popular guns. And same thing, you know, they make speed loaders for the most popular pistols. Versus 5-stars, they have a lot of the more exotic stuff. You know, they have speed loaders for more of the exotic cartridges. You know, that's what turned me on to them. So when I had my 500, which I actually sold because the barrel was just too long. I had a 10.5-inch barrel on it. I got to get a new one with a shorter barrel because the 10.5-inch barrel is just not practical. So I guess that's pretty much it. I guess one last thing is that these kind of make noise because of the, you know, you got the aluminum hitting against the, you know, the case. So it makes like that rattling noise. I mean, it doesn't really, I mean, they're both pretty much loud, so it doesn't, to me, that's not a big deal, but for some people, they don't like that. So yeah, so that's pretty much it. Thanks for watching, guys, and check out 5starfirearms.com. I'll leave links in the description below, and also check out HKS speed loaders as well. Now, these speed loaders have been around for decades, so I will give credit to HKS. You know, I would say that HKS has been in the market for a long time. These speed loaders have proven themselves by law enforcement. These were popular with the old 357s back in the day when, you know, law enforcement used revolvers. You know, HKS was a main supplier for speed loaders for them. So I will have to say that the HKS has been proven by time. So nothing bad against HKS. I just think that, you know, this is like the Arnold Schwarzenegger Terminator, and this is like the, you know, the liquid metal one. You know, this is like the next version. This is the upgraded version. This is the old school, you know, tried and true. I hope that 5-star continues to innovate and, you know, maybe take some of my suggestions. Like I said, make this a little bit thicker, you know, and add some knurling here, and then you have a really good product on your hands. But, you know, this is definitely, I would say, you know, for city use, this is fine. You know, for city carry, for training, security guards, law enforcement, you know, urban use, you know, where you're in a more controlled environment. You know, this, I would say, more general purpose and more for the woods, you know, where you may have to deal with gloves, using gloves and cold weather. You know, you need that extra reliability with the bigger pin and, you know, the bigger spur in the inside, and having this fully enclosed. You know, that's definitely a big advantage if you're using this in the woods. Let's see what else. I think that's pretty much it. So yeah, so thanks for watching, guys. Take care, God bless, and I'll see you on the next video. So I forgot to add this piece into the video, but I forgot to talk about this. But, you know, you can get the 5-star anodized, but for me, I actually purposely didn't get it anodized because so you can get any color you want. So, you know, the color is not an issue. That's not a disadvantage, but I purposely left this unfinished with no anodizing so I can more easily locate this. You know, if let's say I drop this on the ground after I do a reload, if whether it's training or maybe I accidentally drop this on the ground, if I'm in the middle of, you know, handling, you know, pulling it out of my pouch, and you know, let's say I pull this out of my pouch too fast, and you know, my hands under the stress, I drop it on the ground. It's much easier for me to locate this on the ground because it's shiny. You know, it contrasts with the environment. So like versus this is dark. So if let's say I drop this on the floor, you know, and it's a wooded area, you know, or the ground is it's dirt or some kind of gravel or something, it's going to take a little bit longer for me to find this, you know, especially in a forested setting. If it's in the woods, you know, versus this, it's like a shiny object. This will reflect light and it'll stand out on the forest floor, you know. So if let's say like I'm defending myself against a wild animal and I need to reload, and I accidentally drop this, or for whatever reason I need to recover it, this will be much easier to find because it has that silver color. And you know, also if I'm training with it, I can use this. I can more easily recover this. So if, let's say I'm doing a speed reload and I'm training and I drop this on the ground, I can more easily find this, so it prevents it from getting lost, you know, versus this one is, you know, has that earthy color, so it's more easy to lose it. So that's pretty much it, guys. You know, just wanted to mention that that's kind of an advantage in a way, that this is that shiny color. It's more easy to recover this if you drop it. You know, for whatever reason, if you need to recover it, it's easier to find. So you know, that's an advantage. You know, also, you know, if let's say you're in the back country somewhere and you're on a backpacking trip, and you know you lose one of these, you know, that's going to reduce your defensive capability. So this will help you much easier to find once it's on the ground. And yeah, so that's pretty much it. All right, guys, thanks for watching.